right, welcome to the Your Way workshop for August 2022. We are kicking off our project's creative journey in September, and it will go for September and October. Each creative journey is a 2-month period, an investigation and exploration, and most importantly, lots of really thoughtful discussions about this topic to help you think more critically, to help you move forward. And we love to kick it off with these Your Way workshops and to go a little bit, not even a little bit, a lot specific with our topics. And tonight we're going to be talking about album organization. And of course, this is a huge topic, whether you're a paper or digital hybrid scrapbooker, project lifer, however you create, you have undoubtedly thought about, how am I going to store all of these things on my shelf when I'm done? And that's what we're going to be chatting about tonight. If this is your first Your Way workshop, welcome. I am so glad you're here tonight. I want to encourage you to keep an open mind because this might be a new format for you. We use breakout groups during the first, really 2/3 of this event tonight. We're going to run for 90 minutes, and the first hour is small group conversation about our topics. So I'll have a series of questions for you, which I'll share, and I'll also share a link to the agenda if you haven't spotted that yet. And we're going to break you into groups of 4 to 5 individuals. You're going to see scrapbookers from all over the world with all different experience levels, all different interests. And I want to encourage you to trust that even the most introvertiest of you, which includes me typically, will find comfort, because one thing we all have in common is we all love to talk about scrapbooking. So if you don't like small talk, you're actually in the right place, because this isn't small talk. This is big talk. This is deep, this is thoughtful, personal conversation about something that we all love a lot and something that we all probably think about too much. Sometimes, especially when it comes to this question of where do we put our layouts, and how do we structure them within an album? And then how do we structure, those albums as containers? Do we do it by year? Do we do multiple years? Do we do topics? There's so many different decisions. There's no one right way to do it. And so I'm hopeful tonight that we'll be able to bring out different strategies, and particularly some of the kind of decision points that led you to go one way or another, because I think those can be really informative if you are at a place where you feel uncertain. If you hear decision points from others of what really was that kind of critical trigger to go one way or another, that can help you feel secure in staying the course or more confident in changing course. All right, so first thing we're going to do tonight is actually an icebreaker round. And this is just to get familiar with your first group, just to get the juices flowing. And then your first question will actually be in that same group, just so we can have some comfort level as we get into it. And then we'll mix you up where you get to meet new people. And I know it can be intimidating, but I think you can do it. And I see a lot of familiar faces here. And so they can give you the lay of the land, answer any questions, and help you out along the way. So as we get into it, I want to encourage you to share generously of your experiences, your ideas, and at the same time, stay open to the ideas of others. Even if someone does things totally differently, has a totally different lifestyle, life perspective, experience, everyone has something valuable to share, and there's always something to take away from that diversity and that uniqueness of our experiences. And at the same time, these small group conversations, they're not being recorded. The only part that's being recorded is this large group conversation. And so you can feel comfortable sharing more openly in order to really get the conversation going. And then when we come back together at the very end, we share the filtered, the simplified, the takeaway messages from that. So I want you to feel comfortable just sharing openly and genuinely with your small group. All right. Do we have any questions before we do that first icebreaker round? You can raise your hand or pop in the chat box. Kalia asks, is there a workbook for the September theme? Yes, that will be coming out when our classroom for the creative journey inside of the membership launches on the 1st of September. And we could probably sneak that a little bit early, but we're just putting the finishing touches on all that right now. You can actually see the workbook for the September journey, the one-page worksheet at the beginning of this current classroom as well. We posted all of them at the beginning of the year, so you can see it there too. And I can find a link for it as well. All righty, questions? All right, one thing I want to remind you, if we ever say an acronym, just talk about something that's not familiar to you, please don't hesitate to say, hey, could you explain that a little bit more? Sometimes we get a little jargony and don't always remember that we have beginners here too. And so please feel free to remind us if there's something you want to know a little bit more about. There's no question too small or too insignificant. We want to make sure that everyone's informed. All right, let's get this first breakout room going here. And what we're going to do, you'll do that icebreaker, then we'll come back and I'll review all of our questions for tonight. So let's do the first room. So you're just going to, introduce yourselves briefly and share what's one thing that's exciting you right now in scrapbooking. If you listen to the podcast, that's a question we like to talk about a lot. All right, so I'm going to create these groups. 10 minutes. All right. All right, have fun. You're going to get a prompt to take you to the room. So make sure you click that button and you'll automatically head over there. And then when the time is up, you'll come back here with all of us together. So the question is, what's exciting you right now in scrapbooking? All righty, welcome back. Hopefully you got to know your fellow participants a little bit better. And maybe even learned about something new that's fun and exciting right now. So we're going to go over the 3 topics we have tonight. I did just post the agenda in the chat box, and it was also sent out by email in the reminder email today. We're going to cover 3 questions, but each of them has a little bit of nuance and parts just because this is such a big topic. So number 1, what do you do when you complete a layout? And this is an opportunity to be totally honest about what happens next. And then do you have any unfinished layouts and how are those stored? So it's kind of the 2-part, completed and uncompleted. How are these being handled? Kind of what is that immediate next step? Number 2, do you prefer to organize and label your albums chronologically or by topic? And has this always been your preference? And the answer could still be both as well. And then do you have any albums dedicated to a specific topic? We're talking school year albums, travel albums, Christmas albums. There's tons of kind of really specific type albums, but we're talking here kind of ongoing albums. Of course, we have concrete projects, but in this context, I think it'll be most interesting to focus on an album with a specific theme, a specific topic, say one of your children, your spouse, yourself, that you continue to add to over time. And then how do you decide what you start a special album for? All righty. So 3, I can post the agenda again for you guys. It may not have popped in while you were returning. Here you go. It would have been the email that came directly from me, not the email that came from Acuity, the registration system that had the agenda in it. All righty. Okay. So the 3 questions, I will post them to your small group each time as well. So that first one, we're talking about what do you do when you finish a layout or when you haven't finished it, but you're moving on to the next thing. And we're going to keep you in the same groups for this first round. All righty. So we're going to make this 11 minutes and send you all back. So I hope you have a great conversation. All right, welcome back. Hope we had a good discussion. Interesting things learned. Observations shared. Dramatic moments. I hope you had a good first conversation. Now you're going to have a chance to meet some new friends. I am going to shuffle up the groups here. Also make them just a teeny bit smaller on average so that you can really get into the details some more. And yeah, our next question. This is really like the question is, do you prefer to organize and label your albums chronologically or by topic or even both? And has this always been your preference? And then of course, the follow-up to that is what made you make this decision? What made you change? What are you thinking about? What are the considerations? For those who are maybe not familiar with organizing by topic, there's lots of ways to do that, but one of the most popular is called Library of Memories. This is Stacy Julian's system, where there are 4 primary categories, and then you divide those into smaller categories. I don't know the names, how she renamed them, but people we love, all about us, things we do, and places we go. And it's a way of putting like related stories together and feeling less pressure to document everything over time. And so there's lots of benefits to doing it that way. But for some people, their brain just can't wrap around it. It doesn't feel comfortable. And so I think a lot of that's going to come out in the conversation. If you are not familiar with that system, it's a decent likelihood that someone in your group will be able to explain it in a little bit more detail if you want to know more. And of course, when we come back together at the end, I'm sure we will dig into it. So let's jump back in for another 11 minutes. How do you organize your albums at present? Hello. Terrific to see your faces again. Hopefully you had some additional great conversation. Perhaps even, not enough time to cover it all and to really get into all the details. We could talk about this for a long time, but you can save all your additional thoughts for our wrap-up session. So next we have one more small group that I'm going to share a little sneak peek of something we have coming soon at Simple Scrapper, and then we will dig into our big takeaways and lessons learned part of the conversation. So this is your opportunity to share an idea that you had shared with your group or something that you heard from someone else. So what is it that you want to take away? What is it that you want to act on or try, or what was surprising to you, or just a light bulb moment, an aha moment? Think about those things as you enter into this conversation so that we can come back together and share all those ideas. But for now, your last question, do you have any albums dedicated to a specific topic? And how do you decide what gets a special album? All right, I'll recreate your groups here and we will send you back out. All righty. If that was your first time doing breakout groups, I hope you now feel like a seasoned veteran. You've ripped the Band-Aid off, and I hope you return in the future. Or if it was a little bit shaky, I hope you will try it again and know that it does get easier with time. And of course, you extroverts out there, you are fine. So those of us who maybe are a little more introverted or a little bit shy or both, we're learning how to do this, and we can trust that when we're all here together talking about scrapbooking, good things happen. So I'm so glad you guys had a chance to talk. Before we jump into the full group discussion where you're sharing all your takeaways, I wanted to share something new. And so this is something that nobody really knows about yet. This past year, I've been talking about a photo book that I created for last year. So it is this giant book that I created inside of Lightroom Classic, and printed with blurb. It is 240 pages. Of course, you can create shorter ones. 240 is the max. I use digital products, mostly from Ali Edwards. I took photos all year. I even included my week in the life inside of it. I did not include my December daily. It was very much a year-long project, and I used our member crops as accountability to get it done. And I'm finally going to offer something to share this information with everyone. So this week, you will see registration for a 3-part class. So we're going to have one Zoom session that's focused on instruction. It'll be webinar style. We're going to walk through every single step of how to create a book like this using Lightroom Classic. And then there will be 2 additional follow-up sessions where you will be able to ask questions, share your screen. We'll do some student hot seats. We'll really get into the nitty-gritty of additional strategies and helping to make sure that you are on your way with your own project. So this will be starting later in September and going into early October. And of course, everything will be recorded. I'm so excited about this. It's been something people have been asking me about all year. I was trying to find the right way to do it. And so I will be sharing all the details this coming week. I just have one more step to do to film a quick little video to introduce the project to everyone. But I wanted to give you a heads up that that is coming. It is going to be something that is outside the membership, but it is priced to be kind of a no-brainer impulse purchase, something that I think you can get a taste of pretty easily. And so I'm really excited to share that with you to kind of kick off the fall and transition towards the end of the year, which this time of year tends to be kind of a little bit more bursting of energy with our creative juices, except if you're teachers, you've just concluded your creative energy session. And then also, as we are starting to approach the next year, I know many of you, myself included, are thinking about, okay, I need to wrap up 2022. And so how can we do that together? How can we use a strategy, use a format that maybe is still scrapbooking, but is a little bit faster and easier and is ultimately so incredibly satisfying. When I got this book in the mail, I was like, oh my gosh, this is probably the favorite thing I have ever created because it just feels so satisfying to hold a big, thick book. And so I'm excited to share this with you. It's called Scrapbooking with Lightroom. And yeah, the only prerequisite is that you do need to have some sort of basic beginner level familiarity with Lightroom Classic. And so you have questions about that part, please feel free to reach out directly to me. I will be happy to let you know if I think it'll be appropriate for you, because we aren't covering the basics of how to use Lightroom to manage your photos. There's great classes out there, tons of tutorials, even that Adobe has created, of course, tons on YouTube as well. And so this is really how to do the things that we like to do as scrapbookers in a very minimalist, streamlined way inside of a photo book, and all keeping it all in Lightroom. So again, lots more this coming week. Heads up to you all. Yeah, the question, what is the topic of that album? It was basically my 2021 project life. So very chronological. My husband described it as my diary. And I think we'll be talking about the difference between doing the journaling in the moment. It ended up being very personal because I would share a photo and then just document everything that I was feeling about it. And of course, with typing, you get a little bit more words out. This year, I'll be doing a little bit more retrospectively, and I think it'll be kind of a little bit more big picture, a little bit less personal, a little bit more what was important, what do I want to remember? And of course, you can do it any way you want. But it's just such a fun project, and I can't wait to share more of it with you all. All right, yeah, so please feel free to reach out to me directly if you have questions about the technical aspects of which version of Lightroom and what kind of comfort level you need to have to take this. All righty here. All right, album organization. So I wanted to mention this because, this is one strategy that I have this is how I am accomplishing the everyday memories part of my memory keeping. And this will go on my shelf, and I hope to have many years now going forward of this was my year in sum, and then the rest of my time, my creative nurturing time, we spent making layouts, telling bigger stories across time. And for me, those are going to be organized thematically by topic using the Library of Memory system. But before we jump into that, I want to hear particularly about what do you do when you finish your layouts, and what do you do with those unfinished layouts? So I will confess that this particular stack over here, you can see these horizontal shelves. These are all layouts that are finished that need to be put away. So that's where mine go. Now, what about you guys? Feel free to use the raise hand button. It's under reactions if you can. If you can't do that, you can just unmute yourself or whatever, but I'll try to call on folks in order just to keep our conversation orderly. Alyssa.
So I put all my finished layouts in an album that at the end of the year, I then sort into my library of memories. But this way I have an album where I can show or make my friends look at my most recent layouts and admire them. And then when my mom comes to visit, we have a viewing of the album.
I like that strategy. It makes it's kind of deferred decision making also in a good way, being able to have a really clear, okay, I know when this is done, it goes here. And then you will have another session to put them in their final resting place, if you will. Awesome. Okay, Carol.
I have an iris box that I put my layouts in that are done, and then I have a I don't know what it's called, a cabinet, but it's open. It's, you know, from Michael's or whatever, and you can put iris boxes inside of it. So it into the iris box, into that storage thing.
Now, what happens when that all is full? Is that when you go put them somewhere else?
That is what happened recently, that it was full and I had to get them in albums. So then I sat down and finished up some, and otherwise they were finished, and I put them where they belonged, at least where I thought they belonged right now. I just tried to use my best guess.
Sure. But like Alyssa, you have a temporary kind of holding spot for them. So
yeah.
Okay, what about others? Does anybody immediately put it in the place it's going to live forever? Amy does. Diana does. Sherry does. See some nods there. Yeah. Tiffany sometimes does.
Tiffany had a good story. You have to share, Tiffany, about what you do with your layouts. Show how beautiful it is.
You're still muted, Tiffany.
The iris container, I just put them in here. And then when it gets full, I file them where they go. Or if it's that sometimes means like I have a baby album and I have it all structured and I have it all figured out. And so I like have post-it notes on what's missing. Yes. So when I finish that layout, then I remove the post-it note, put the layout where it goes. So that's why it's sometimes. So if it's a specific project where I know what's going in it, then I can put it away because it's already set up for me. But otherwise it goes in the bucket to get put away later.
Well, and I think there is kind of a greater ease to that, because when you are putting them together at the end, you can make the decisions about, well, this is a 2-page spread, and then this is a 1-page. And so how are these going to go? And it's not even always about making it like look perfectly good together, but just the function of having different sizes of pages and all of that, putting in your album. So doing it in a batch can be more productive. So you don't have to like change something later. Very cool. What about Amy, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I do put them into the album, but before that, my husband has to see them and I have to take a picture of them, and then they go straight into the album.
All right. So you have a
little process. Yeah.
And do you find yourself able to kind of close the circle on your process with every page?
Yeah.
Nice. We are all in admiration of you.
It used to not be that way, but this year it has gone very smoothly.
Oh, I love that.
What do you do with the pictures of them, the photos?
I have a folder in my photo storage that is my layouts for this year. And somebody asked me already why I do that. And it's because I can drag them over into Simple Scrapper. So that I didn't ever do that before.
Awesome. I love it. Do you keep like a checklist for yourself so you know where you're at and like all the steps, or you just do it? No. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Amy.
I think it's so wise, Amy, that you do that, because if something happened to an album,
yes,
you would have the layouts that you've made and could make a book out of that at least.
What about unfinished pages? Do you have them in precariously in boxes, or, you know, obviously digital people, your unfinished pages, your Photoshop files are living in a folder, probably the same place as your finished ones, or maybe they get into different folders. But how do you keep track of what needs to be finished?
I like kit things up, make a kit. And lately I've just been printing out the photos that I want to finish, because I have so many albums close to being finished that I just I have a pile. I have 2 or 3 of these things that have things started, papers that I like to put together. And then I have that We Are Memory Keepers tray table that moves.
Oh,
And
nice.
I've got it by cut files. I'm working in a cut file group, Jamel and Scrap, a couple of different groups that I'm in, and I just have them laid there, the ones that I have actually put together with photos.
So just for those who can't see that or don't know about it, it's
I'm
kind of like
sorry.
cafeteria
It's that.
trays on a rack, right? Yeah.
There. It's down there.
Super cool. I wish I don't have space for that, but
I don't either, but I keep running. One of these days I'm going to knock it over, but I
yeah.
have everything in a page protector, and and then what
Nice.
I make a picture of, say it's Scrap Squad. I print a picture of the actual layout that I want to at least get close to, and then I put it in there with the pictures, and then after, and I see stuff that I like that I want to use, I just throw everything like a kit, and then from there, so that I don't have to start over every time.
Of course. Yeah. No, that's awesome, Kim. Thank you. Amy Z.
I think in our group, it was interesting to kind of clarify an unfinished layout. So like what Kim's talking about is almost like kitting up things for a layout.
Kind of pre-finished.
Yeah, exactly. I had a lot of layouts that like, oh, I wanna order a 5x7 for that. So I gotta set it aside, or I need to finish the journaling, so I need to set it aside. And so I ran into a problem with that probably 6 months ago, and I bought an IKEA little shelf that it's raised up on the table kind of behind me that I can put things in horizontally. But yet the key is that it can't hold like 1,000, right? Like I have to only have so many in there. So right now I have a couple layouts that, like I said, need some journaling, or I'm waiting on a product that I ordered or something. So it's kind of been fun going through and productive going through and pulling some of those out now when I got some of my supplies, and it doesn't take long to finish a layout now.
Yeah, no, that's really satisfying for sure.
So
Well,
then
I think I definitely went through a phase where I was doing that a lot, where I would leave, there's just one thing that I needed, and then I would put it away. And I think part of that was I was creating so often and often doing it with you guys. But now I'm like really hard on myself. I leave it out, like basically on top of my laptop until it's done. Like, okay, you're going to finish this completely, so that I'm not adding to that pile.
Right. And for me, it's been freeing to be able to have this, but I can see it being a problem if I got too many.
Yeah.
But the other Amy H had a good point that there's a lot of pages that can be like unfinished, if you will, that are from classes or things where they're almost like foundation pages where you didn't have photos to use in them yet. So she said that she stores those in albums so she can flip through and look at them kind of by color. So I thought that was a cool way too, that I don't have a lot of those. And I think I was always really careful. Like, I don't know if I want to glue all this down in this class, because I want to find my photos first, and I didn't take as many classes, but that's another like version of an unfinished layout that I would get treated differently too. So
I really like the idea of having those in an album so that you can browse them and also protect them, because they tend to be closer to finished. They're not quite as finished as what Amy Z, you were describing, but more finished than what Kim was describing. And so you don't want all those embellishments to fall off because you have them in a pile somewhere. So yeah, I like that idea. It's awesome. Amy H. We have a lot of Amy's here. A lot of Kims. All righty. Let's transition more to the album question. How do you store your layouts? Are you diehard chronological? Are you opening your mind to other ways? Have you flipped back and forth? And I think that those who have transitioned one way or another, changed their mind, redone it all, like we'd love to hear why you made those choices. Amy H., go ahead.
Well, I've been scrapbooking long enough to have tried out all of the different ways. So I started out with the Library of Memories, the 4 categories, because I started scrapbooking as an art form and not as a memory keeper or a storyteller. And that obviously has evolved quite a bit. But also, as my husband got more involved in our family memory keeping aspect, it became really clear that his chronological brain and my non-chronological didn't fit very well. And so we've had to do some compromising, and we have flipped. And now we have a year-long album, and the foundation pages in there talk about the things we did and what was important for us, not for the world, not for anybody else, not for our kids or grandkids, unless we were participating. It's an us album. And then I throw in between all those, the pages that I just make, the layouts that I want. So it's kind of a compromise now. It used to be that the compromise started after I said, well, I can't get rid of these library of memory categories. He said, well, at least put them by year. So we had a year album, and you opened it and it had 4 chapters in it, you know, for the library of memories for that year. And now it's the opposite. We have a year album, and the library of memories activities are just random in it. So
I love how you've made it fit your particular unique circumstance of life,
right.
your family's needs, particularly when, you know, our significant others they can be somewhat engaged, but they're not the primary memory keeper. And so when we can help make them more likely to appreciate and to encourage and honor what we do, I think that's a good compromise. That's awesome. Jen.
Unmute. Okay. So that's so interesting what Amy H was saying about her husband, because I actually have had many, I like to rip things apart and put them back together and see what happens. So I was very, very much into Jennifer's way of having a year, but part is chronological and part is library of memories. And for me, that usually looked like 2 albums a year. And my husband and stepson, like, they didn't get the library of memories part. And so I actually smushed everything together pretty recently, and just because it didn't make sense for, I would be like, well, these are people and these are places. Well, why isn't it in July when we did that thing or saw that person or whatever? And so and obviously they're my books and I can do whatever I want to with them and all that, but I want to make them more, you know, accessible and stuff like that. So I think, since this is like future plans, but I think that at some point what I would like to do, since I'm digi and can make as many copies of whatever as I want to, I think I would like to make kind of more library of memories books, but make them into blurb books with layouts, kind of take a copy of whatever layout I make and put it in a people we love or something like that, or like Christmases throughout the years, or, you know, something like that, that are more topically, you know, because blurb books are cheap and they'll look at those. So that's kind of the plan at some point, one of these days.
Yeah, it's so interesting to just think about how we're I think we've always been very strategic, but I think the longer we're scrapbookers, and I know some of you have been scrapbooking for a really long time, the more you think about, okay, what do I want to have here? Yes, there's the experience part, and then there's the production aspect. And sometimes those are separate, and sometimes they have to be really intertwined with each other. Mickey.
Hey, so for me, I'll start kind of with that second part, which was, has this art always been your preference? So when I started scrapbooking, the only option really was post-bound albums. And I found out pretty early on that doing anything as far as organizing and switching things around was more work than I was willing to put in.
Yep.
So that meant that I was just putting things in this post-bound album as I was scrapping, but I've never been a chronological scrapbooker. So this whole thing made no sense. So the whole business was just all over the place. And then there was the paper clipping roundtable episode that had Stacy, Julian, and Shamel. And they were on there each talking about their systems. And then they did the deep dive. Each of them did deep dives, and it changed everything for me. And that's when I went into a library of memories / story albums. So these are my albums, and I do kind of a vague library of memories in that I have a yearly album here, which so far is several years, and is just kind of, and I do divided, Becky Higgins sells like the tab dividers, and I do that by year in the album of yearly albums, I should say. But then in between there, if there are things that fit into one of my categories, then those go in there. So like I have this album right here, which is holidays. So maybe we don't do everything. So maybe we don't do 4th of July every year, or we do different things for 4th of July. So everything's just going to go in there. Each holiday has its own tab. And then within those tabs, it's chronological. So then if there's something that stands out, then it gets kind of an upgrade album, as Shamel calls it. So the example that I brought up in kind of the discussions that we had was, I have a Logandale Fair, which is our county, like a big county fair in the town of Logandale every year, that we've been going to since my daughter was 2, and she turns 15 tomorrow. So, it's a big span of time. It's something we do every year. And so then I can put everything in there chronologically, but I still have those tabs that give the year, because I don't scrapbook chronologically. Then I can still go back and say, okay, this is where this will go. So I have things by category, and then if it's something bigger, like a trip or something like that, or like these are all Disney albums. So we go to Disneyland fairly frequently, but most of those albums isn't going to be its own album, because it's, a weekend trip most times. So that's how I do it. I do chronologically within those special categories, but I still do the category based organization.
I love, again, kind of, you found your own compromise. And one thing that stood out to me was making this distinction between scrapbooking chronologically, as in I'm scrapbooking the next thing, versus storing things chronologically. Because I think most of us don't have any interest in what happened in like November 1988 or whatever, like that's not maybe the busiest, buzziest thing on your mind right now. What's most interesting might be something recent, or something recent that reminds you of something in the past. And so you don't have to do what is next. You can do whatever you want and then store it in a way that makes sense for your brain, which could be some sort of compromise hybrid solution, or, one way or another. All right, Young Me.
So my albums are very chronological because the thought of things being out of order date-wise makes my eyes twitch and like will keep me up at night. But one of the reasons I realized I like organizing them this way so much is I kind of see my scrapbooks as a reference collection of my life. So there have been times when, I'm with family or friends and they're like, oh yeah, who was there for that thing? Or what date was this? And I'm like, I can tell you. And I like run to a scrapbook and I know exactly what page it is and I can tell you like the date, the time and everything. So because I view my scrapbooks and that's how when I'm flipping through them, I see it as kind of like a journal. It's like a diary. So chronological for those purposes just makes a ton of sense for me.
Oh, I love that. I can see like if I was starting from scratch today question, like that feels very compelling. But having like all my stuff now, knowing that I didn't do that, I don't think I'd go back to it. But I absolutely love that. And I love how you've really said, this is who I am, and I'm going to embrace that and celebrate it and just go with it. So very cool. Thank you for sharing. Malia.
Hi. Actually, I have a question. I would love to hear more about the tabs that the person 2 people ago was talking about, just because I like to organize by where we have lived. And then I think it would be kind of cool to be able to tab it out by the by using that system. And I've never heard of that before.
Okay, so I don't we'll have to find out. I don't know how easy these are to find. I bought them on clearance at my grocery store.
So,
But they're things you could make too. So these are clear. They had ones at that time that were actually even patterned, and I have some of those as well. And so this part here sticks up above. So you could certainly make this with cardstock, with your own type of acetate, and then use a tab on top. So I also have these Avery index tabs. If you're familiar with Allie Edwards, she loves to use these. Sure. So you can put these on top of a divider that you have, or you can even put it on the side. And so one thing I will often do is I'll put them on the side in my albums on whatever size page protector I'm using, even as like, this is my section cover page. And then I'll put a tab on it just to further indicate that this is a divider for that section. But yeah, I don't know if these are still available. They'd be on the Becky Higgins website, possibly still on Amazon. So
okay, thank you.
Mickey, go ahead.
Okay, so I was that person. They are available on the Becky Higgins website. If you go to the physical store, the physical product side, and so I'll just open up. This is my daughter's school album. So they come in tabs like this, like little dividers, much like what you have. And then they come with a various, like this one, you'll get labels that are pre-made that are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 or something like that. And then these have, I don't know if you can tell with the glare, but they have for the school years, and then they have a set of labels that you can write on that I have used on other albums. And so you can they come in packages. I don't know if I have one of those handy, but they come in packages, and then I just write on it with Sharpie, like a fine point Sharpie. And I give it a minute because it can smear. I have definitely smeared my share of writing on these labels, or on the dividers, but they work well. And the quality of the label is the divider is pretty good. So I haven't had much wear or tear or anything like that on the divider itself.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I have some of those frosted ones as well. These are the total transparent ones, and I do like the frosted ones a lot. I've also used letter stickers on the side, like just full up on the whole length of it, kind of bold, to indicate the section, division too. So, So just a different neat look to it. Lois, did you have something to add to the divider conversation or another conversation? Maybe Lois disappeared. Oh, there you are.
I have an emergency question. I just dropped this on my pants.
Oh no.
It's this brand. Will it come out? You think?
Someone would know better than me. Okay.
Hope it's not permanent on clothes. Anybody know?
I don't know about that ink, but take your pants off and soak them in cold water right now.
Soak it in cold water now. Okay, thanks.
Right now. That's the
You
first line
heard
of
her. Take off
defense.
your pants.
I won't do it now. I'll go the other
Right.
way. All right.
Or rubbing
Go the other-
alcohol, rubbing alcohol.
Okay, thanks.
Hairspray also works on some ink removals.
Yeah, I've heard that. I'm gonna.
That's the reason hairspray works, is the rubbing alcohol in it, the alcohol in it.
Okay.
Okay.
We got some sort of, I had the cat chewed up a pen and it exploded on the couch. Of course, right after we got the couch, and they sent us a bottle of stuff, and I don't know if it was, I'm assuming it's alcohol based, but it totally got all of the ink out, and we still have the couch 10 years later. All right, that is a very emergent situation. Oh, we also have a comment here. Lois is not here, but how do you remove archival ink from fabric? Debbie, yeah, okay, we will make sure we share that with everyone, because it seems like something that everyone should know.
Yeah, Jennifer, I just Googled it real quick. So
Nice,
came
nice.
up.
I'm gonna copy that and share it. I will share it on Instagram. All right, okay. We are at the top of the hour. Any additional thoughts from your conversations, particularly as we talk about, those sorry, it started raining here really hard. The theme albums, how do you make these decisions over what goes where? Michelle W.
My question is actually about, I typed it in the chat, but and then I'll answer this one, but I typed it in the chat. It was about, for Tiffany, how does she use the library of memories, or what kind of albums does she use? So she's the one that puts everything into the Iris tub or cart thing, and then puts it in albums. So I'm just curious if she does chronological or library of memories.
Great question.
So I do chronological unless it fits in one of those specialty albums, and then it'll go into that one.
All right.
Like I have a Disneyland album. I lived in Southern California for a handful of years, and so like that's actually divided up into the lands of Disneyland. So of all the trips, if it was Fantasyland, I put it in the Fantasyland section type thing.
Cool.
But most of my albums are chronological.
Thank you.
Cool. Mickey?
Yeah, so I was just gonna talk about because you asked when does it qualify for its own album?
Yeah.
And for me, usually that ends up being vacations are just automatically going to get their own album, because there's going to be a large number of layouts, and I already know this. But as far as kind of a day-to-day sort of thing, so is it something that's going to repeat, or that there are going to be a lot of pages about? So we were fostering a dog, and so I was like, well, that's going to go in the yearly album, because it's a temporary thing. So that goes in, that's going to be in the yearly kind of day-to-day kind of layouts. And then we are keeping the dog. It was technically a foster fail. The person was not able to take the dog back, whose dog it was. And so now we have a dog. And so now it's an upgrade album, because my entire camera roll is now nothing but corgi pictures.
Yeah.
So when I can see that sort of thing, or when a set of things gains importance, one of the albums I talked about is this purple one here. So my high school theater teacher was, we got notified that she was in the hospital and that she was probably going to pass away. And so, you know, anyone who is in Las Vegas went to the hospital to see her. And then we've had gatherings together ever since, you know, getting us back together after, you know, 20 years of being out of high school. And so I made an album of the theater that I've been to and the concerts that I've been to in a purple album, because that was her favorite color, and how like she had an influence over my love of theater over the years. And then as well as like any times that we've gone together. So like when something ends up having a sense of importance, then it's going to get an upgrade album.
One, I love how, because we were talking about the challenges of postbound albums, and that when we're using 3-ring albums and full page protectors where you can remove your pages from it, that really allows for a lot of flexibility to change your mind and to kind of wait for it to become clear, oh, this really needs its own album, instead of feeling like you have to make all these decisions ahead of time. Because often it'll be when you're flipping through or you're putting a bunch of layouts away and you realize, oh, well, like, you know, a third of this album is this one thing, or I have layouts about this particular story across many albums, and I keep showing people all these different albums to show them the growth of, say, my puppy or whatever, and it'd be much easier if they were all in one place. So I think that's the more that you can just keep open-minded to having to shift things and using that upgrade album approach, I think you'll find some satisfaction and also some peace at not having to have it all figured out right in this moment, because our stories will always continue to evolve. All right, we could keep talking forever and ever, but thank you so much for spending time tonight. I hope you had some good insights. Maybe you have a new direction, something that you want to work on. I will be actually rearranging my albums this year, so when I do that, I will share that with everyone and all the stories behind it. But yeah, I hope you join us for Scrapbooking with Lightroom, if that's something that's interesting to you. And of course, our next Your Way workshop will be in 2 months on the 20th of October, which is crazy to think about. We're already 2 months away from October. And we will be talking about jumping into our planning journey. And I think that one is about creative hubs. So a creative hub is a place where you can store all of your scrapbooking ideas, the classes you're taking, putting everything in one place so that your hobby is as organized as maybe the rest of your life, or maybe even more. So that will be a fun conversation in 2 months' time. But for now, we are jumping into the projects journey. If you would like to continue these types of thoughtful conversations, we'd love to see you inside the membership. We're going to be talking about 2 months. We're going to be talking about projects for the next 2 months. Lots of great, thoughtful questions. We have a refresh retreat coming up, and of course, a finishing day where you can finish one of those projects that you have started, or maybe even a pile of layouts that need to be put away. All right, I will see you all again soon. Take care. Thanks for joining us.